Okay, can you hear me, everyone?
Yes, I can.
Very good. Okay. Again, this is a 40-minute session. If it breaks off and we did not finish, we'll take a 10-minute break and then we'll go back. So what are we doing today? We are doing chapter 20, which is human impact. This is also a very easy chapter, but not because we left ecology till the very end. I keep on saying that. This means it's not important. Actually, ecology is a very important lesson, and it shows up on every single exam, every variant. Okay, can you see my screen now? Is my screen clear?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Now, what does this lesson talk about? It talks about how do we impact our environment, actually. How do we positively impact and negatively impact our environment? In other words, how do we do good and do bad for our environment? Give me a second, I'll remove that. Okay, so we as humans, we are doing good for our environment. And of course, we do, or we cause lots of pollution. So what are the positive impacts and what are the negative impacts? Now, I'll do this quickly because this is really easy. If you have a question, please stop me. Now, the positive impacts, what good do we do? We created modern technology. In other words, for example, we use fertilizers, we use pesticides, we use herbicides, we use artificial selection. Of course, these things all they have advantages and disadvantages. But the most important advantage is that these things, they all increased crop yield. It increased the food output. And this is very important because with time, we have more people living on Earth and we have to feed everyone. If we did not come up with ways to make more food, we would all suffer from starvation. So let's take it one by one. So the positive human impact, what good did we do? Or what did we do to increase the food output? We used fertilizers. I'm sure you know what these are. These fertilizers, they contain nitrates so that plants can make protein. They contain magnesium for chlorophyll. They increase the rate of plant growth, soil fertility, crop yield. Fertilizers are very important for plant growth. We use pesticides. Now, pesticides, these are the sprays that kills insects. Of course, these have advantages and disadvantages. The advantages that the pests or the insects will be killed and we will not, or we will improve our crop yield. Now, the disadvantages of pesticides, of course, they are harmful to our health because they are absorbed by the plant and then we eat this plant and it enters our body. And of course, it causes lots of diseases. So we have advantages and disadvantages to everything. And we'll discuss the disadvantages as we move on. Now, the herbicides, we took herbicides in the lesson biotechnology. These are also sprays that kill unwanted plants or kill herbs. Now, again, herbicides are good because it increases crop yield. But herbicides, these are chemicals, and chemicals are never good. Chemicals, they will be absorbed by the plant. you will eat the plant. So this herbicide will enter your body. It causes diseases, it causes allergic reactions, it causes cancer. So these are the disadvantages. Now, artificial selection, again, we took it in detail in the lesson adaptation. I will remind you what is artificial selection. We will choose plants with favorable characteristics. And these plants or animals that are chosen, we will allow them to breed. We will wait for them until they produce offspring, and then we will choose again from their offspring with favorable characteristics, and we will keep on repeating this procedure until all our population of plants or animals are of favorable characteristics. Now, this is artificial selection. They ask about it many, many times. And the advantage of artificial selection is that with time, all our plants or all our animals will only have favorable characteristics. So these are the good things we do, or the things that we do to improve our food output. Also, we have biotechnology. This was a lesson on its own. We use bacteria and yeast for our advantage in so many ways. We will not discuss them now. This is a different lesson altogether. We play around with genes in genetic modification or genetic engineering. Again, we know now the advantages and disadvantages of that. But if we will talk about genetic modification in terms of improvement of crop yield, we made our crops resistant to pests. We made our crops resistant to weeds. We made our crops have a higher nutritional value in golden rice, if you remember this example. We made our crops super crops. They will grow any time of the year. They will grow regardless of the environmental conditions. They will grow. We have rain, we don't have rain, we have drought, we have too much salt, too little salt. Our plants now are super plants and they grow regardless of the environmental conditions. And these crops now, they will provide more food for everyone. Yes, we have a lot of disadvantages when we play around with genes, but the main advantage is that we are making more food for everyone to eat. Now, of course, in agriculture, we use lots of modern machinery. We have very, very modern farms, and I'll show you pictures. These modern machinery include tractors like this. This helps us, of course, with agriculture when we have acres and acres of land. This, of course, really helps in agriculture. We have here automated feeding. Now, these chickens are being automatically fed by those machines. We don't here need labor. So this is going to help us hire less people. This will be less labor. It's faster. It's cost effective. And of course, it provides better farming and more food. So the main advantage is more food. We do a lot of things so that we produce more food. But sometimes we, of course, cause disadvantages. Everything has advantages and disadvantages, and you need to know both sides of the equation. Okay, now the different or the new machinery that are found on modern farms. We have here sensors. These are cameras or sensors that can sense or view your farm while you're sitting and watching everything from a screen. You automatically irrigate your farm with automatic or water irrigation. These are very modern tractors. These are drones. These are cameras so that you can monitor your farm. And this, of course, is very, very beneficial, time saving, labor saving, etc., etc. Now we have an increasing human population. That is why we are trying in so many ways to increase the food production. Too much human population, this is a disadvantage because you need to provide more food for everyone. You need to provide housing for everyone. You need to provide education for everyone, jobs for everyone. You need more land to make homes. And this means that we will do some deforestation. We'll discuss this in a minute. Okay. Now, so we talked about how do we improve our agriculture and what are the disadvantages of those. This is general information, nothing hard here. If you have any questions, tell me. Now, some terms. This lesson has a lot of definitions and they're all very easy. The first definition is monoculture and polyculture. Now, I hope it's clear from the name. Monoculture means I'm going to grow only one type of crop, only one type. I will grow only cotton. I will grow only wheat. Some countries are specialized in growing one type of crop. Example, Egypt is specialized in growing cotton. Now, this has advantages and disadvantages. What are the advantages of monoculture, only growing one type of crop? Of course, you'll be very specialized. You will be an expert and you will have all the know-how and you will know very well how to grow this type of crop. So it will lead to something called specialization. You will be the best country to grow that type of crop. It will bring you a lot of money. It's very profitable. It will reduce plant competition because you will not grow any type of plant. I'm only going to grow one type of plant. Of course, it will reduce costs, less costs. I'm only growing one thing, cotton, wheat, only cucumber, only carrots, only one type of crop. I'll be an expert. This is going to give me specialization. It's going to bring me more money, faster, less plant competition, and cheaper. Okay. Now, what are the disadvantages of the monoculture? And this is a very, very common question. You will see it in paper 4. Advantages and disadvantages of things in general. Advantages and disadvantages of monoculture. Can you think of disadvantages of only growing one type of crop? What will this do to the biodiversity? More or less biodiversity if you only have one type of land?
Less biodiversity.
Of course, this is greatly going to affect the variation that you have on your farm. So there is less biodiversity, less animal and plant biodiversity. If you ask me why animal, because other types of plants is food for other types of animals. So when you have only one plant, the animals that used to feed on the other type of plants will be gone. So less plants, less animals, less biodiversity. Something else. What if one disease catches this type of plant? What will happen to your farm? You grow only wheat and it has been caught by a disease. This is a catastrophe because all your farm will be affected and this is going to cause a catastrophe. So this is a very big disadvantage. If you have more than one type of plant, if you grow wheat and tomato and cucumber and the wheat crop has been destroyed, you have other plants to help you and finance you. But if you have one type of farm with one type of plant only, monoculture, if there is a disease, the whole farm is going to catch this disease and it's going to be a big, big problem. So let's read the disadvantages together. Number 1, loss of biodiversity. And this is a very big disadvantage in nature. We want more biodiversity. Anything that leads to less biodiversity is not good. If we grow only one type of plant, it will make the soil unfertile. Imagine if you have soil in which you grow tomatoes and crops and wheat and cucumber and so many different types of plant, the soil will be very versatile and the soil will be very flexible and very fertile. But if you use your soil to produce only one type of crop, this is going to reduce the fertility of the soil. Number 3, because your soil will be so unfertile, you will have to use lots and lots of fertilizers. Fertilizers have lots of disadvantages, and we will discuss their disadvantages in detail. Now, when we talk about fertilizers, we will talk about a type of pollution known as eutrophication. Those who took this lesson last year know exactly what's eutrophication. Eutrophication is water pollution that we will discuss in detail. Just give me a minute. And it results because of too much fertilizers. Too much fertilizers also pollutes the land itself. It will destroy the soil. Okay, you put too much fertilizers, it will destroy your soil. With time, your soil will not be fit to grow any type of plant. Number 4 disadvantage is very important. There is a very high chance for easy spread of diseases. If the disease catches on your crop, all your farm will be affected. You will lose all your crop, and this is going to be financially big problem. Okay. And because your soil also is very unfertile and you have only one type of plant, you will have to use lots of fertilizers. We will discuss their disadvantages. You will have to use lots of pesticides to control the spread of insects or pests. And pesticides also, they have lots of disadvantages. They kill good insects and bad insects. So this is also going to reduce biodiversity. And pesticides or any chemical, fertilizer, pesticide, herbicide, it all causes one type of pollution. It will cause pollution, and this pollution will accumulate in a food chain. Just be patient. We will talk about bioaccumulation. Okay, so I hope monoculture is clear. It's clear from the name, mono. Mono means one. I will grow only one type of crop. The advantage is that I'm going to be an expert at growing this type of crop, and it's going to be cheaper and it's going to be faster. But the disadvantages are a lot. If I grow only one type of crop, this will reduce biodiversity. My soil will be unfertile. I will use lots of fertilizers. I will use lots of chemicals, and I'm going to have a very high chance for the spread of disease. And you need to memorize the disadvantages, unfortunately. Okay, now can you guess what polyculture is? If monoculture is growing one thing, what is polyculture?
Growing different things.
Exactly, like the picture shows you here, polyculture means I'm growing several types of crops. And this, of course, has advantages and disadvantages. Without even reading on, what is the advantage of the polyculture in terms of biodiversity, more or less biodiversity?
More.
Of course, more. If you study the list of one type, then the other type will be the exact opposite. We said in monoculture there is less biodiversity. So in polyculture, I have more biodiversity. Your soil will be more fertile or less fertile?
More.
Of course, more fertile. When I am growing a lot of things, my soil will be very fertile. Is there a chance that your crops will die from disease, or a higher chance or a lower chance? What do you think? If there's a certain disease and
Lower
I have
chance.
different types of crops, yes, if I have different types of crops, or maybe one crop will be affected, but the other crops will stay healthy. So I have a lower chance that my farm will be affected from disease. So the polyculture, these are the advantages. Can you think of the disadvantages? Is it cheaper or more expensive to grow lots of crops?
More expensive.
Exactly, it's more expensive. And of course, it will take more time and more management and control. So polyculture, of course, it's harder to be specialized in a lot of things. If you are only growing one type of crop, it's much easier, but it has a lot of disadvantages. So let's read it quickly. Polyculture, growing more than one type of crop, advantages, you lose biodiversity. There is no risk of rapid spread of disease. Of course, because your soil is more fertile, you will use less fertilizers and less chemicals, so therefore less pollution. The disadvantages, you're not going to be an expert in producing one type of crop, so there is no specialization. It is slower, more expensive, and it is, of course, much more difficult to manage a large farm with so many different types of crops. Now, let's talk about the questions that are very, very common. They always ask about deforestation because deforestation is one of the worst things that you can do to your earth. Deforestation and eutrophication, two very important objectives. Now, from the picture here, what is deforestation? From the name deforestation, what is it?
Cutting down trees.
Yes,
Clearing
cutting down
forests.
trees, cutting down acres and acres of land. Look at this. This is a moving picture. It's very quick. But at the beginning of the picture, you have a large forest. See that? And then all this forest has been broken down, cut down, in order to form this desert. Now, the question is, why would we do deforestation? And what are the disadvantages of deforestation? Why would we
To
cut down
build
so
other
many trees?
houses.
Exactly.
wood.
Easy. Why would we cut down so many trees? Why do you think so? Give me at least three reasons. Why do we do?
More residential areas.
Exactly. You're all correct. One of you said for wood, this is a natural resource. One of you said for houses, for residential areas, to build schools, to build homes, to build roads, for natural resources. This is why we cut down trees. Now, if you come to think of any advantages, you will not find a single advantage for the cutting down of trees. So there are no advantages for deforestation, only disadvantages. And we have a list of disadvantages. Without reading them, can you think of one or two disadvantages for deforestation?
Cause global warming.
Of course,
Loss of habitat.
global, of course. You will find many, many, many disadvantages. You don't even need to study it. If we cut down trees, there will be less photosynthesis and there will be more carbon dioxide in the air. Now, I want you to keep track with me. Photosynthesis removes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere because photosynthesis is carbon dioxide plus water to give you food and oxygen. So photosynthesis is good because I'm going to remove CO2 from the atmosphere. CO2 causes global warming. When I have less trees, this means I will have less photosynthesis and more carbon dioxide. And like your friend said, this is going to cause Global warming. We will discuss what is it in detail in case you're not sure what is it. Just be patient. Something else. This is going to greatly affect biodiversity. More or less biodiversity?
Less.
Of course, less plants, less animals, because plants is food for animals. Plant is home for birds and for snakes and for insects and for a lot of animals. So much less biodiversity, less plants, less animals, less, these plants can be used for medication, can be used for food. So less food, less resources, less medication. We will destroy our land because this is now fertile land. We have fertile soil here. And when we cut down the trees, the roots was holding the soil in place. We have no roots and the soil will be washed away by the rain. And this is going to change our fertile soil into a desert. So we had soil and we had very fertile land, and we changed this fertile land into a desert. And this is called desertification. We created our own desert. Of course, this is a horrible disadvantage. So many disadvantages from deforestation. Let's read it together. Deforestation is the cutting down of trees. Of course, we know that. Why? To build homes, to extract natural resources, to build roads, etc., etc. Now, the disadvantage, less animal and plant biodiversity. Of course, this is one of the biggest disadvantages. Less animals, less plants, less food, less homes. Number two, soil erosion. When we had a nice forest like this with trees, the roots used to hold the soil in place. When we did deforestation, we have no roots to hold the soil in place, and we will change this to this. We did this with our own hands. Of course, this is called desertification. We created a desert, which is one of the worst disadvantages. Why did we do that? Because when we cut down the trees, trees, we removed the roots. The roots was holding the soil in place. No soil will be held. The soil will be washed away by the rain, and we will change this nice forest into this horrible desert. So this is another disadvantage. A third disadvantage is eutrophication. Now, eutrophication also is a very, very, very common objective. They always ask you about it. Very easy. Eutrophication looks like this. We had a nice, beautiful river, and we changed this river into this green, ugly meadow or algae. You know this green, ugly, this green, slimy algae that you see floating on rivers or on rocks? This is algae. This is eutrophication. Now, what happens in eutrophication? Eutrophication is a multi-step procedure. Number one, we are going to use lots of fertilizers. Fertilizers contains lots of nitrogen because plants use nitrogen to make what?
Proteins.
Proteins. Very good. We are using lots of fertilizers, and these fertilizers are very soluble. When it rains, these fertilizers will dissolve in the rainwater and they will leach out, or they will go out. They will be dissolved in the rainwater and they will move from the land and they will go to the river. So this is number one. Excess nutrients from fertilizers will run off or leach from the land into the water. In this water, in this river, now we have lots of fertilizers with lots of nitrogen. Nitrogen and fertilizers will lead to the overgrowth of algae. This microscopic plant, this slimy green plant, it's naturally found in rivers. But because of the too much fertilizers that has been leached out into the river, this will result in the overgrowth of the algae. It's called the algae boom. We will have too much of this green slimy algae. This green slimy algae is going to grow too much and it's going to block the surface of the river and block the sun. No sun will reach the river. Number one, the plants will die inside the river. When the plants die, they will be decomposed. Decomposers will break down the dead plants. When decomposition increases inside the river, this is going to reduce the oxygen composition inside the river. This is going to cause oxygen depletion. Very little oxygen concentrations inside the river is going to cause the death of the fish. So the fish will die. and the fish will be decomposed. And with time, plants will die, fish will die, no oxygen in the river. And the river is going to slowly change from a nice, beautiful river into an ugly green meadow that is full of algae with no fish and no life. This is eutrophication. I hope I can show you another picture. No. So going back to eutrophication. Deforestation and the use of fertilizers causes eutrophication for two reasons. We need to understand it together. Now, when you had lots of trees, these trees had very thick roots. These roots used to hold the soil in place. When you do deforestation, you remove the roots. You have no more roots, and the soil will not be held in place. This soil is going to leach out. And the soil is going to be washed away by the rain. Not only that, you will be adding fertilizers. Fertilizers, when you have no trees, will not be absorbed. And fertilizers are very soluble. They will dissolve in rainwater and they will leach out and they will fall into nearby rivers. So you have here a river that is now filled with fertilizers. Let's take the story step by step. This is a river, and you have here lots of fertilizers thrown in the river. This fertilizer, it's made up of what mainly? What is the main composition of the fertilizer? It contains lots of what? Tell me.
Nitrogen.
Very good. It contains lots of nitrogen or nitrates. Nitrates is food for plants, and it is also food for algae, which is a microscopic plant. So this river will have very high concentration of nitrates. This is going to cause an algae boom. I'm going to use green color, and I'm going to draw here a green curtain, which is actually algae. This is algae. The algae is going to overgrow until it forms a green curtain on the surface of the river. This is going to block out the sun rays. So I have no sun reaching the river. What will die inside the river?
Plants.
Plants will die. And like anything that dies, it will become decomposed. Decomposition is the same as respiration. Dead food will be decomposed by the absorption of oxygen to give me carbon dioxide and water. So the oxygen will be used up. The decomposers are going to use up the oxygen. This is going to cause oxygen depletion. The oxygen concentration will decrease. When the oxygen levels decrease, what else will die? What else will not be able to survive?
Marine life.
Exactly. All the fish will die. So this happens slowly. First, we have the release of fertilizers into the river. Fertilizers contain lots of nitrates. Nitrates will lead to the overgrowth of algae. Algae is going to create a green curtain. This green curtain is going to block out the sun. So the sun is not going to reach the river. Everything inside the river will die. Plants will die first. They will be decomposed. As they are decomposed, this is going to reduce the oxygen concentration levels. And this is going to further kill the fish. So with time, there will be no life inside this river. And it's going to change into a green, slimy meadow that is filled with algae. And it's going to, and of course, this is one of the worst forms of pollution. And this is called eutrophication. Two things cause, or three things lead to eutrophication. Number one, deforestation, because when we cut down trees, we will remove the roots that will absorb the fertilizers. No roots, fertilizers will not be absorbed. Fertilizers will dissolve in the rainwater and reach out to a nearby river. Something else that will cause eutrophication, excessive use of fertilizers. Too much fertilizers will run off to the river and will cause eutrophication. Number three, throwing sewage also into the rivers. I think you know what sewage is, because sewage contains organic matter and contains lots of nitrates, and it will lead to the same consequences. Not only that, sewage also contains lots of bacteria that will cause disease. So You have a lot of things to write when they ask you about the consequences of things. When they throw lots of fertilizers, fertilizers will lead to eutrophication, and you will write the story of eutrophication. When you throw sewage, sewage is organic matter plus lots of bacteria. This organic matter is going to cause eutrophication, plus it's going to cause the spread of disease. So we are here causing all forms of pollution. What are we studying in this lesson? The pollution that we are causing to our earth, and hopefully how we can prevent it. So let's go back to de-eutrophication. Deforestation, I mean. Deforestation means cutting down trees. And this has no advantages, it's only filled with disadvantages. Less animal and plant biodiversity. I'm going to cause soil erosion. When the soil is eroded, I'm going to create a desert. This is called desertification, which is a horrible disadvantage. Not only when I cause soil erosion, I'm going to create a desert, the nitrates in the soil is going to be washed out and go to the river. And this is going to cause what? Eutrophication. So eutrophication, I think you understand what is it by now. Eutrophication is caused by deforestation because the nitrates in the soil, they will not be absorbed by the roots and they will go to the river. Or it is caused by excessive use of fertilizers, or it is caused by the throwing of sewage into the water. I hope you understand what eutrophication is. Now, when you are asked about eutrophication, you need to write certain points in a certain order with the keywords. Let's read it together. So here in eutrophication, first you will mention that you have overuse of fertilizers or sewage, which contain nitrates. Let me use a different color. So they have lots of nitrates. And the problem is with the nitrates. These nitrates is food for algae. So it's going to cause the excessive growth of algae or the algae boom. The algae boom, or the word algae, is a keyword. Now the algae, when it overgrows, it will cause a green curtain that will block out the sun. No sun means the plants will die. They will die means they will decompose. As they are getting decomposed, the oxygen will be consumed, and this is going to cause oxygen depletion. And then here is the keyword oxygen depletion. Less oxygen means no fish. The fish will die also, and they will also decompose. And with time, I will have no river, no plants, no fish, no oxygen. This is eutrophication. Not only that, when I throw sewage into the water, this is going to cause the spread of disease. You need to write it down in order. You need to mention everything in order. Don't forget, fertilizers are very soluble and they leach out into the river. And sewage causes two things: eutrophication and also the spread of disease. Is eutrophication clear? Because this is both core and supplement. Eutrophication is very, very important. Any questions over eutrophication and the steps? Again, another picture here. You have fertilizers, overuse of fertilizers. They will leach. The word leach is very common. They will be dissolved in the rainwater and they will go to the river. Lots of nitrogen. It will cause the overgrowth of algae, algae boom. Okay. It will create a green curtain that will block the sun. And then the plants will die, they will be decomposed. This is going to cause a decrease in the oxygen concentration levels. The fish will suffocate because of the lack of oxygen. The fish will die, and we will have no life in this river. This is eutrophication. Anyone has any questions over eutrophication? Hello? Clear?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
Now, some of you, or one of you actually, when I asked what are the disadvantages of deforestation, he told me global warming. He was very correct. Let's take it also and break it down, because this can be a question on its own. When you're cutting down plants, just like here, you will have an increase in the concentration of CO2 because you will have less photosynthesis, more CO2. CO2 is a greenhouse gas. Can someone tell me what is a greenhouse gas that causes global warming? What are these terms? Global warming. Who told me that the CO2 is a greenhouse gas?
It's a gas that prevents the escape of heat into space.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, some of you know it, some of you don't. I'll jump into the global warming diagram so we understand it together. Again, this is both core and supplements. Very, very common questions here. Now, this is a nice picture that shows you what naturally happens. And when we have excess of CO2 gas in the atmosphere, what happens? We have our nice smiling sun here. The sun is releasing light energy and heat energy and ultraviolet radiation. This energy is going to hit the surface of the earth. Now, the surface of the earth is going to absorb some of the heat and it's going to reflect the rest. And this is normal. We have to absorb heat from the sun or the earth is going to freeze. So normally, this is what normally happens. We absorb some of the heat from the sun and we reflect the rest. Now, when we do lots of pollution and we emit a lot of toxic gases like methane and carbon dioxide, we create an invisible curtain in our atmosphere. It's called the black curtain. Okay? Now, when the sun releases radiation, this radiation is going to reach the earth. We will absorb the heat that we need, and the rest will not be reflected back as normal, but the rest is going to be absorbed by this black curtain. The rest is going to be absorbed by the carbon dioxide gas and the methane gas and the toxic gases that we produce from our factories and our car fumes. So we will absorb too much heat, and too much heat will be trapped within the Earth's atmosphere, resulting in global warming. Now, the name speaks for itself. Our globe, our Earth, will be warmer than normal. And the average temperature of the Earth is going to rise above normal. And of course, this has lots of disadvantages. So please, let's understand what is it first, and let's talk about the disadvantages. Global warming, from the name, this is when our globe, when our Earth becomes warmer than normal. Our average Earth temperature increases above normal. Why? Because of our bad habits, because of our pollution, because of the release of toxic gases, and you need to know those two, carbon dioxide and methane. The concentration of carbon dioxide in the air or in our atmosphere has increased so much, and one of the reasons for the increase in the CO2 levels is because of deforestation. We're cutting down trees for houses, for roads, for schools, for the extraction of fossil fuels. When there are less plants, there will be less photosynthesis and more CO2. CO2 is a greenhouse gas. Just like your friend said, she said it perfectly. We will absorb too much heat, and a lot of heat will be trapped within the Earth's atmosphere. Thank God they don't ask you about the sequence of events, but you might be asked also. And when our Earth becomes very, very warm, this is going to kill a lot of plants and a lot of animals, and it's going to melt ice in certain parts of the world, and it's going to change the normal or the natural environment of our Earth, etc., etc. So this is global warming. I don't want to jump. Let's go back to deforestation. And what are the disadvantages of deforestation? Because there's so many. So where were we? We were here. Yes. More CO2. We are cutting down trees. We're still in deforestation. We're cutting down trees. Too much CO2. CO2 is a greenhouse gas. It's going to cause global warming and climate change. So less plants, less photosynthesis, more CO2. More CO2 means global warming and climate change. So this is the fifth disadvantage. We have lots of disadvantages. Where are we? Okay. Now, reasons for deforestation. We said it. We will cut down trees for more farms and more houses. We want to extract natural resources, and it's going to cause marine pollution or water pollution. I think we mentioned that. Another type of pollution. We are polluting our land. Now, what are we studying in this lesson? How we are polluting our air, our land, our waters. We are still in the land pollution by something called landfills. And the easiest way is to show you a picture. This is the landfill, a pile of garbage. Now, what are the disadvantages here? This landfill causes also lots of pollution. It will pollute the air, it will pollute the soil, and it will pollute any nearby water. Now, this landfill, of course, smells horrible, and it releases lots of toxic gases. One of the toxic gases that are released is methane. You need to know this name. And methane is one of the gases that is going to cause global warming, just like carbon dioxide. It traps and it absorbs lots of heat, and this is going to make our globe or our Earth warmer than normal. So this is a landfill. This is land pollution. We are throwing a pile of rubbish. This is going to pollute the air and the soil and the nearby rivers. This is going to pollute the air by releasing a very ugly smell and gases that are going to cause global warming, including methane gas, which results due to the incomplete breakdown of organic matter. We have here sewage and feces and decaying matter. As things are being decomposed, they release methane, which is a greenhouse gas. Something else. This causes the spread of disease. So much spread of disease. You have here lots of rats and snakes and flies and horrible insects that can cause the spread of disease. Number 3, this is going to destroy the soil. You cannot grow crops after you pile a landfill here, because here contains lots of toxic chemicals that will be washed out into the soil. The soil is going to absorb all these chemicals, and the soil is not going to be fit for any farming. And all these chemicals will also be washed out to a nearby river and also cause eutrophication. So this is another form of land pollution called the landfill. This landfill, it will pollute your air and pollute your fresh water nearby and destroy your soil. How does it pollute your air? It releases toxic gases, example, methane, that results due to the incomplete breakdown of organic matter. And methane, just like CO2, it will cause global warming and climate change. I hope this is clear. The landfill, this is the landfill. This landfill is going to